Maryland will beat Michigan State on Saturday.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I think that the Maryland Terrapins will beat the Michigan State Spartans on Saturday. I think that the Terps, I said it from the start with Michigan State. I've been saying this for a couple weeks ago, but I feel even better about us beating Michigan State on Saturday because I look at it and I say, we get Michigan State at the perfect time, at the exact right time. I don't want to play this Michigan State team later on the season. I want to play them right now before they find out who they are, before they figure out everything as a team, before they know how to mesh as a team, before they know kind of how their head coach works exactly. This is the time to face this newly constructed, very intriguing Michigan State team because I don't think they're ready yet. I don't think they're ready to take the next step as a program yet. I don't think that they're going to do it in these first couple of weeks, and I don't think they're going to do it against a Maryland team. So when I look at Maryland, I say, you got Michigan State at the exact right time. Playing them in week 2 is the best time to play them. And I say that because I think of Michigan State Spartans. Think about their teams. Their head coach comes from Oregon State. Coach Smith, Jonathan Smith, very solid coach at Oregon State. Did some really good things with an Oregon State program that a lot of people don't think about as a program that's probably like anything that special. But he was able to do some really cool things over there. He's able to build something really solid. I feel like they'd always have a good team. They were ranked a lot of the year last year. Like, they were definitely a very solid program. But him coming over to Michigan State, I don't know yet if he's completely gone over the roster. Like, he hasn't gone through 4 recruiting classes, and now it's like his guys completely. He hasn't quite completely transformed the culture. He hasn't completely changed everything he probably wants to change. It's the early stages of everything. It's not perfect yet. And I think that the Michigan State Spartans program in the future is going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be one that the Terps could have trouble with. And the Big Ten should be watching out for. But I think right now, when we look at this Michigan State Spartans team, we say, they're still kind of figuring a lot of things out. And I said it before the season, but I didn't have 100% confidence that was going to be true because sometimes you get a new coach, new quarterback, and they come out firing, and it looks really good right away. But their week 1 game against FAU made me feel a lot better about the Terps having a really good chance in this week 2 game against Michigan State. And I kind of just made my point. I felt like more true when I looked at them barely scraped by FAU in a game where I think they were favored by like 14, upwards of 14 points. I think it got up to 14. I think it started at like 13 or 12 or something like that, and then got up to 14. So a game that they were supposed to handle FAU, maybe it would have been kind of close, but they were supposed to win that game, and a game where they won the game 10-16. And Maryland's much better than FAU. Now, it's not just like you can be like, oh, Maryland's much better than FAU. They only beat FAU by 6. Oh, the Terps are going to crush Michigan State. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that I feel like they're not ready quite yet. I don't think that they've completely dug into this new culture. I don't think they're completely where they want to be yet. And so I really do believe that the Terps have the advantage. Coach Locksley has built this program for a while now. Coach Locksley has recruited. He's gone through recruiting classes. Coach Locksley has gotten the guys that he has wanted to get. And so I think that he's a little bit ahead of where this Michigan State football program is. And I think on paper, Maryland's team is just better when we really go through it. And I think that the spread and everything, which we're going to talk about later, kind of shows that the Maryland team is better. And I think when you look at it, you say, okay, you go through position group by position group, you probably would say Maryland's better at a lot of different positions. I think we just have a little bit of a better team right now for sure. Don't get me wrong. Michigan State's going to be a much harder test than UConn. I'm not saying we're going to crush Michigan State. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that we should have a really good opportunity to start the year 2-0, and I think we will. And I also think another reason I think the Terps win is because we're at home. If we were going to Michigan State, it might be a little bit different if we were going over there. Tough place to play at times when they're decent. And right now with all the new stuff, I'm guessing their home field advantage would be something for sure. And it's never easy to travel over there to any of those schools over there in Michigan, whether it's Michigan or Michigan State. But the fact that Maryland's home makes me feel a lot better. And so I look at it and I say, okay, new coach for them who's clearly still kind of figuring out his roster, still figuring out how he wants to put things together. And as well as Maryland's at home, I think those two things really point to the Maryland winning the game. They beat FAU by 6 while they were at home, and they didn't look that good at their own place. So I'm thinking when they go on the road, I feel a lot better about the Terps looking really good at home against a Michigan State Spartans team. And I think it's a game you want to win. I'm telling you, this Maryland schedule later on gets really hard. If you want to get to 8, 9 wins, whatever the case may be, if you have any dream of getting to 10 wins, you got to knock these wins out, because later on the season when you get Oregon and you have to travel to Eugene, and then you get Penn State, you have to travel to Penn State. When you get USC at home, yes, USC looks good this year. They looked good against LSU. It's only been one game, but Miller Moss looks good. And my upset prediction for the Terps upsetting USC it's definitely looking kind of up in the air right now. But I think you have to look at Michigan State as it's a game that is early on the season, a game where you're favored by a lot of points, and it's a game that you got to win. And another reason I think the Terps win is because I think Michigan State's quarterback, it's the similar thing to what I'm saying about their head coach. Aiden Childs, really talented recruit. He's shown flashes of being a really good player, and I think he's going to put it together. He's only going into his second year, but he followed his coach, Jonathan Smith from Oregon State, which made a lot of sense. But I don't think he's quite ready yet to have that next. And so I don't believe he's completely figured it out yet. I don't think that he's quite ready to go into a Terps atmosphere that's not crazy, but I don't think he's ready to come to Maryland and just beat us. I just don't see that yet. Could he have like a sophomore jump moment where we're like, oh, whoa, where did that come from? Yeah, for sure. He could definitely have one of those moments where we look at him and we're like, dang, like he that's the guy that Michigan State recruited for sure. But I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen him play that well. And against FAU, he really struggled. So I'm going to go off of the recency bias a little bit, but also just like what they put out on the field last week. He went 10 of 24 for 114 yards and 2 interceptions. Like, that tells me that he's not quite there. Talented recruit will definitely, I think, get there. Like, I think the kid's really talented. I don't think they're there yet. So I do think that the Terps win this game, and that's not necessarily a bold take, but I do think that it's a Michigan State Spartans program that is going to offer a lot more challenge than UConn did. We're going to have to fix some things up from the prior week, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more glaring holes on our team after this game. And I think I'll talk about what my score prediction is later, so I won't ruin that, but I do think that it's a game where it's not like, oh, Maryland just crushes Michigan State. I'll go ahead and say that. That's not how I see it. But I think when I look at Maryland's at home, Michigan State, new coach, they're still getting used to this new culture. They're still getting used to this new feel. I'm not saying that's a bad thing or anything, but it takes time to kind of build that. And it showed again week 1 against FAU, new young quarterback. And I think that they could have trouble moving the ball on offense. So I think that the Terps have a really great shot at winning this game and getting their first Big Ten win and moving into the season at 1-0, which I think is really important to do. Let's talk about some key matchups that the Terps must win in order to beat Michigan State. I'll talk about that after this ad from LinkedIn. These days, new potential hires can feel like high-stakes wagers for a small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. A lot of people need jobs right now, and if you want to find someone amazing for your company, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, what matchups do the Terps have to win in order to beat this Michigan State Spartans teams? I think there's a couple of different ones that the Terps must win for them to kind of win this game. To me, the strength of the Michigan State offense right now is their running game. They ran the ball pretty well against FAU. This kid, Kyron Adams, is an interesting player for Michigan State. He's definitely a guy that we're going to have to look out for. He looks like he was a transfer from UMass, but he looked really good in week 1 against FAU. Did a lot of really cool things in terms of rushing the football. Had 9 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. So definitely a guy that I think that is going to be a potential problem for the Maryland Terrapins. And my thing is, we're just going to have to stop the run in general. If Maryland stops the run, they win this game. I really do believe that. But if Michigan State is able to control the clock, is able to run the ball on us, it could be a lot scarier and closer of a game than we want it to be. And so I'm looking at the Terps defensive line, and I talked about it last week. Against UConn, they were just decent. They were decent. It wasn't anything as special as I probably would have thought against a team like UConn, where I thought we would be able to be kind of physically dominate them and just kind of line up and just be better than the UConn offensive line. But it wasn't really like that. There wasn't a lot of sacks. I mean, UConn didn't run the ball over us, but I just thought it would be a little bit better. And against Michigan State, their offensive line, if we're not careful, could potentially push us around. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, how does Michigan State Spartans beat us? And I think this is the number one spot. They run the ball, control the clock. Their quarterback, Aiden Childs, also is a runner of the football. So that's also another interesting dynamic that's part of it. But I think we have to think about those different things when we talk about Aiden Childs as a quarterback. We know he can get his legs moving. And so with their run game being the strength in week 1 and their passing game being pretty horrible in their week 1 game against FAU, I think it's reasonable for me to say if the Terps stop the run, I don't think that Michigan State's going to score a lot. I think they're still figuring out the kinks in the passing game, and I'm not scared of the Michigan State receivers. To be completely honest, I'm really not scared of them. I think Maryland has the advantage at the playmaker positions. I'm not really scared of those guys. I say put an extra guy in the box, make Aiden Childs beat us with his arm. If he does that, and if they're able to score a lot of points like that, then switch the game plan in the game and change things up. But you kind of just have to tip your hat. But I really do believe that Maryland's run game or Michigan State's run game, I think, wins them this game. If they win, that's how they win the game. So I think number one matchup I'm looking at, I'm not even looking at as much as, that kid, that running back played really well, Kyron Adams, in week 1. I'm more looking at it as like Maryland's defensive line versus Michigan State's offensive line. Michigan State's offensive line by no means is like some powerhouse unit. It's not like it's going to be like a Michigan offensive line. Like, it's not going to be like that. But I do think that it's a potential solid group that we're going to have to play well against. We're going to have to fill our lanes against. And also the linebacker room. Hippolyte started off the game kind of shaky, to be completely honest. Didn't have his best performance. And so I'd say that Hippolyte, Wheatland, whoever else plays in that room, they're going to be big in the rushing game. Those guys got to fill the right holes. We can't overdo something. We can't try and make a play that's not there. And I think, to me, that's the number one matchup of the game. I think the offensive, Maryland's defensive line versus Michigan State's offensive line. And another thing I think is going to be interesting, which is it's a little bit of a different matchup. It's not technically like one that goes head to head on the field, but it's the most important kind of matchup is a quarterback battle. I haven't talked about Billy Edwards today, which I probably should have talked about a little bit. When I look at Billy Edwards, I'm like, okay, Aiden Childs in that quarterback ranking was ranked ahead of you. Prove that you're better than Aiden Childs, because clearly Michigan State fans and Big Ten analysts thought that Aiden Childs was going to be a better quarterback than you. And you've dealt with doubters a lot. But let's see what you can do in your first Big Ten matchup. Because I put a lot of stock into that UConn game that Billy Edwards had, because I thought he made some really cool throws. I thought he made all the right decisions. He completed like 74% of his passes. He had rapport with Ty Felton. I thought he looked really good. But we got to see you do it against Michigan State. And Aiden Childs was the complete opposite in his first start. It didn't look – his first start at Michigan State, it didn't look good. It looked pretty bad. And so you see what I'm saying? Like two guys that had opposite first starts. Aiden Childs' first start at Michigan State, Billy Edwards. It's technically not his first start, but his real first start as a starter, I'll say. And so I'm like, okay, one guy just came off having a really good game against a lesser opponent. One guy didn't play well against a lesser opponent. Does that even itself out? And then we kind of find a middle ground where both guys maybe Aiden plays better, Billy Edwards comes back down to earth, or does the same thing kind of continue? And I think that's going to be a huge matchup, because if Michigan State's not going to be able to run the ball, can Aiden Childs make enough throws for them to win the game? And that's going to be a really big thing. And I think a similar thing with Billy Edwards. Billy Edwards, we're gonna run him a lot this game. We're gonna do a lot of quarterback run. I already know it. We did a decent amount of it in the UConn game, and that was against UConn. But if they're able to stop the Billy Edwards run game, and they're able to stop Roman Hemby and Nolan Ray gets more carries, whatever the case is, my question mark is, will Billy Edwards continue to make the throws? And I think you're looking at two quarterbacks that are rather similar, two guys that run the ball really well, really top-end athletes, really talented players, but are still working to put it together. They come from different spots. Aiden Childs comes from a 4-star background, or he's a top 100 recruit, like everybody in the country wanted that kid. Billy Edwards, a little bit different, waited his time, but his time has come now. But I think they're similar types of players. And so I think whoever makes more throws in this game, they're both going to make plays with their legs. But whoever makes more throws in this game could have a huge advantage and could win this game for the Maryland Terrapins. Will the Terps cover the spread? That's an interesting one. I'll talk about that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute, like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop trishing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on the tickets right up to the start of an event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So I checked out the line for the game this morning, and I was honestly surprised. Maybe I'm just overrating Michigan State as a program, but I don't know why. I didn't think the spread would be like 9.5. It's a pretty big spread to me. I'm like, okay, Maryland's good, but we beat UConn 50-7, yeah, but we still have a lot of the same question marks. Billy Edwards looked good, sure, but he's still going to have to prove it against an actual Big Ten team and a team that can really get to the quarterback, has a really solid defense like Michigan State does. He's still going to have to prove that against a team that might actually put up points, and he'll actually have to have the pressure of scoring and all these different things. You guys know what I mean. He's still going to have to prove it. And so I was like, okay, Yeah, the 9.5 seems a little bit steep. Yeah, Maryland's at home, but 9.5 points against the Michigan State Spartan teams. Yeah, they have a lot of question marks, but they still have some guys. They still have some talent. They have a really good defense that could definitely challenge our offense for sure. And I didn't understand it. I thought it would be. I guess the line has moved. Is my best guess. I thought it started at like 7. 7 seems more real to me. Even like 6, I could see like 9.5 seems just like a lot of points. And maybe I'm way overrating Michigan State's roster. I'm no expert on Michigan State's roster, but I'm thinking that they're pretty decent. And this Maryland team I think is good, but I don't know if we're 9.5 points better than Michigan State good. And so the way I see it is, I see it as a game where Maryland wins the game, but I think Michigan State covers. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I think it's our first Big Ten game, and I did talk about, yeah, they have new coach coming in. The culture isn't quite probably where he wants it to be. He hasn't probably quite figured everything out yet. There's a lot of different kinks that still get worked out. He hasn't gone through all of his recruiting classes. Those different things, yeah, those things are true. But still, they still have a good defense. I do think they can run the football. And I think that's part of the reason why I do think that this game has a really good shot at Michigan State covering, because I think Michigan State could try and control the clock. I think that's what they're going to try and go into the game and do. They're going to try and control the clock, run the football, keep the ball away from the Maryland offense, not try and make Aiden Childs make too many throws. Like, that's not what they want to do right now with him, because I don't think he's quite ready to just take over a game like that. I could be wrong, but I also think Aiden Childs is talented, and I think he's talented enough to cover 9.5, to be completely honest. And I think when we look at the FAU game, we might be putting a little too much stock into it. I think it's fair for them to look bad in the first game, but they also did look really bad. So it's like, where do we find kind of a middle ground, and where do we kind of how do I meet you halfway with this, with how they looked in the first game? Yeah, it was the first game, but you also looked awful. So it's kind of like going back and forth, but I think they cover the spread. I do. I think it's a close game. I think it's rather lower scoring. I think this game could have the real potential to go under, because I look at this and I say, look at the strengths of both teams. The Maryland strength is the defense. It still is. It's the defensive line. It's the safety unit. It's Ruben Hippolyte in the linebacker room. It's the defense. Like, all in going position by position group and everything, the defense is stronger than the offense. It just is. But the offense is still has a chance to be really good. And then Michigan State, same exact thing. When I talked to the Locked On Spartans, when I talked to Matt at Locked On Spartans, he said the defense right now is the strength of the team, and he knows his stuff for sure. So I think I look at it and I said that this game goes under, but I don't think Maryland covers the spread. So to me, it's going to be a close game, I think, at Maryland. I think I don't want to overrate this UConn win. I don't want to overrate us, to be completely unfair. I think we're good, but I don't think we're 9.5 points better than Michigan State. I just don't. I could be wrong. I was right last week. I said Maryland's going to crush UConn. They're going to smack that 20.5. The game did go over. I thought it would go more under, because I didn't think Maryland would put up as many points as they end up putting up. I thought that 20.5, it didn't really make sense to me. But this 9.5 doesn't really make sense to me. And so all I'm saying is, if you do bet, I don't know if you should take this points. Could I be completely wrong? Yeah. But it seems like a lot of points to me, where it's a game that could really go different ways. So I do think that the spread's a little too high, but I do think that the under makes a lot of sense with the strengths of being both defenses. It could be kind of a sluggish type of game where Billy Edwards comes back down to earth. Aiden Childs continues to kind of not look awesome, but maybe he looks better. So I think it could be interesting game, but I think I'll probably go Maryland. I'll go Maryland 20, Michigan State 17. I think I might have predicted in the other one 23-20, but I'll go down a little bit more to 20-17. Maryland wins in a kind of grinded out type of game. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.